instructions, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. To provide for the safety of those attending this meeting, I want to give the following instructions in case of an emergency. First, please take a moment to note where your exits are. If an emergency arises that prompts us to evacuate, I ask that everyone exit this room in a quick and orderly manner through one of the two exterior doors, one to your right, the other behind you. Once you exit the building, we ask that you safely cross Granville Street to our parking lot to be safely away from the building. Our staff will help provide direction and assistance. In the case of a tornado warning, we ask that you exit this room to the hallway where we will remain until it's safe to exit. In the event of an active shooter in the building, we will run if there is an accessible escape path. We ask that you try to evacuate the premises. Or we will hide if you can't evacuate. Find a place to hide where you are less likely to be found, lock any doors that you can. And finally, fight only as a last resort, only if your life is in imminent danger. Our staff will provide assistance on what to do. Thank you for your attention.
You have in your agenda package the meeting minutes of the previous meeting. Any additions or corrections? Motion. Prayer.
Eternal God, our Father, we thank you for helping us to see the new year in the third day. But we thank you for the blessings of last year, that we might continue to do things that are good, that are right, and as we serve our constituents, give us a right mind to do what is right and fair to our citizens. Bless our service that we might not serve in vain. Through Christ our Lord, we pray. Amen.
Now to the left. You have in your agenda package minutes of the previous meeting and additions or corrections. None. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by a vote sign aye. Aye. All opposed? Here is none, the minutes all approved. I ain't going to give Mr. Peters the chair now. Mr. Peters, we can take item 5.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the December 2021 meeting, I presided over the vote for the position of chairman for 2022. The board voted to nominate Mr. Wiggins and voted to close the nominations. We intended to also vote for the chairman in that same vote, but to clear up the record, that didn't happen. So that's my fault. To clear up the record, I'd like to have the board vote to clearly confirm Mr. Wiggins as chair. So Mr. Wiggins has been nominated by the board. The nominations have been closed by the board. So I'd like to take a vote on that. All those in favor of Mr. Wiggins being confirmed as chairman for 2022, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Mr. Wiggins votes.
Do I need to do the same thing for mine?
Yes, sir, you
Do I
can.
need to carry? All in favor? I made the nomination for Brother Hines to be vice chair. And there was a motion. All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. Here's confirmed. At this time, we have scheduled appointments. The scheduled appointments, we have to come in here.
No, sir, Mr. Chair.
The scheduled appointments are for the recognition of Trooper Daniel Herrera. I'm going to ask Mr. Boswell to read that, go to the podium, read that, and make that presentation.
I would like to ask Trooper Harold to step up to the podium and his family if they want to join him. I think everybody should be real now. All right. We're here tonight to recognize Trooper Harold. Resolution to recognize Trooper Daniel Herrera. Whereas it is our desire to recognize the accomplishments and service of individuals whose life and work impacted this county and our citizens. And whereas on January 14, 2019, North Carolina State Highway Patrolman Daniel Herrera, who is an Edgecombe County resident, was shot and seriously injured while making a traffic stop. And whereas in spite of his injuries, Trooper Herrera pursued the assailant until backup arrived and the arrest was made. And whereas Trooper Herald's bravery inspires us all, and this board is especially proud to recognize him, considering he is the son of the late Thomas T.C. Cherry, former county commissioner and North Carolina State Trooper. Now therefore it be officially and publicly noted that the Edgecombe County Board of Commissioners hereby gives honor to North Carolina State Highway Patrolman Daniel Herrera, the this third day of January 2022. Leonard Wiggins, Chairman, Herrera County Manager. Congratulations, Trooper Herrera. I want to make one footnote.
But let me make one, is there a motion to approve?
No, no. Thank you.
Go ahead now.
One little footnote, we certainly remember his grandfather, Mr. Thomas T.C. Cherry, and also, there's someone here that doesn't know it, I want to know that his father, Herrera, was also a patrolman, and he's retired too. So, it runs into that. Daniel, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, and I like, I was proud to serve with the last trooper that gave me the last chicken I ever got, which was your grandfather. You have any comments?
No, sir, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. The next agenda item is the recognition of first responders at QVC facility fire, and then we'll ask Mr. Wells to make that presentation. Ms. Evans, you have any comments on that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. As we all know, that was certainly a tragic event, mostly because certainly there was a lot of property lost, but there was a life that was lost as well. But I think this is a very fitting recognition because I think everybody would be very proud of the many, many agencies that cooperated together to respond to that, and some of which are in the room. I'd like to ask for Mark Walters to come forward to receive this on behalf of his staff, on behalf of all of the agencies, and certainly those agencies will be recognized in the resolution.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to read this. Resolution to recognize our first responders assisting with the QVC fire. Whereas it is our desire to recognize the accomplishments and services of individuals and organizations whose life and work positively impact this county and our citizens. And whereas on the morning of December the 18th, 2021, first responders were dispatched to a fire call at the QVC facility here in Edgecombe County. And whereas this fire spread to damage approximately 75% of this 1.2 million square foot facility, being reported as the largest such structural fire in North Carolina history. And whereas the property damage is overshadowed by the devastating loss of one of the QVC's employees, Mr. Kevon Riggs. And whereas in the midst of this tragedy, we are inspired by the brave work and the collaborative effort of nearly 100 responding agencies, including 74 fire departments, 3 EMS agencies, the North Carolina Forestry Service with 9 officers responding, our own emergency services team, Sheriff Clee Axelson and his staff, and the many other support organizations and officials. Now therefore be it officially and publicly noted that the Edgecombe County Board of Commissioners hereby gives honor to the first responders and support team who assisted with the QVC facility fire on December 18, 2021. This, the third day of January 2022, signed by our chairman, our commissioners, Leonard Wiggins, attested to by Eric Evans, our county manager. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Second. Questions? All in favor, let it be known by vote saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Question.
Thank you. My daddy always told me, training yourself to good people. And, they work. I was there, the person I was at that age was, I think they take care, they didn't miss a week. And I'm proud of them, and like I say, I got good people working, I can believe a lot, a lot of good job. Just hold this thing, but that's all I do.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could add, I know Sheriff Atkinson is here, and many of his team, thank you, sir, and their work continues as the investigation of the cause of it continues. Also want to acknowledge that that facility, Kingsborough Industrial Park, is in the Heartsease Fire Department. Heartsease Fire Department was the first to respond. They got the call and responded. And certainly they were surrounded by lots of fire departments and other agencies, but I wanted to recognize them as well.
Anybody else like that comment, sir? Anybody? Anybody? Thank you so much. Thank all of you for your service.
So we have tonight Michelle Etheridge, who's our interim health director, who will come and give you an update on COVID-19.
Good evening. Everyone had a happy new year.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn.
So as of December 29th, the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services reported approximately 8,500 cases of COVID-19 in Edgecombe County. The group most affected still continues to be white females, ages 25 to 49. In your handout, when it was sent out, it didn't have the daily case averages. We were able to just pull those together. We have had quite a week last week. So it took us a minute to try to get all that together. Our staff has been very innovative with cases. So the week of December 13th, we had a total of 53 cases. We averaged 8 a day. The following week, the week of December 20th, we jumped up to 174 total cases with 25 a day. The week of December 27th, we had 663 total positive cases, averaging 95 cases a day. So that is steadily, as you can see, climbing. School age, we were right there about, school was getting ready to get out for the break. So we've had a very small percentage that have been at school age. It will be interesting to see over the next couple of weeks when the children go back to school, what we look like then. Unfortunately, we did have any deaths, but we have not had any more deaths in Edgecombe County. We're still at 127 deaths from COVID. For testing, as you know, there's been a huge increase in the need for testing. OptumServe is still providing testing on our behalf. On Wednesdays, we have the Rocky Mountain drive-through testing. This Wednesday, we will extend it a couple hours. It'll be from 9 to 3. Or if they're still going at 3 o'clock, we'll continue until there's not a need. But we are going to try to fill in the gaps where we can, where we have staff available. For vaccinations, we did have a slight increase from early November. First dose, we're now at 49%. We're at 48%. We are still at only 45% fully vaccinated. To try to offer more opportunities to get vaccinated during the month of January, we'll be offering vaccine clinics 2 additional days in our Rocky Mount office on Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 9 to 4 by appointment, and walk-ins will be accepted. Our community events, along with the National Guard, since July 16th, we participated in 49 community events, providing 783 vaccinations to the community through those events with National Guard. And as you've probably seen, now that everything's increasing, our numbers are increasing, they've lowered the guidance on isolation and quarantine. So just to give you a new update from the CDC guidance, for individuals who have been exposed to or contracted COVID-19, the general public and school age, their quarantine and isolation has been lowered from 10 days to 5 days. Healthcare providers could either be a little bit longer or a little bit less, depending on the staffing issues. So it's an individual staffing issue. For example, hospitals who might be in a crisis mode, depending on if the person is symptomatic or not, they may have quarantine at all. They may need their staff to report. And that is why the CDC has lowered it to 5 days from 10, because we're having such a staffing issue. That's my report.
And questions?
Just one question to confirm. Down at the bottom where it says 1.9%, 420 people hospitalized, that's all pertaining to the 8,551 cases.
Yes,
That's
sir.
the ones you know about.
That's the ones we know about.
You don't know about some other people.
Yes, sir. Unknown is 4,100. We were looking at the state site the other day, and there's over 200,000 cases that have not been accounted for. So we don't know where that falls. One of the things that we find interesting that we're still only at 45% fully vaccinated. We know people are getting vaccinated, maybe not at the rate we want them to, but what we're finding through doing our vaccinations is, we have to enter everything into the state system called CDMS. And sometimes when we go to enter things in there, someone comes to us for a booster, but they went somewhere else for their first 2 doses. They're not in the system. So we have to find out where they got vaccinated, call that, and usually it's a pharmacy, call that pharmacy, ask them to put the individual's information in there so we can account for the vaccine we just gave them. So it makes us wonder if our percentage is actually higher than what's been reported. And I did address that on the call the other day with the state. They said they'd send it up, so I don't know where that'll go.
My question.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you heard anything about an outbreak at the alcohol or any other facility?
That is reported to us, so an outbreak at a long-term care facility is considered 2 or more, could be a staff or a resident. So we are closely monitoring some of those outbreaks.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Public petition. At this time, we have public petition.
Mr. Chairman, I did have 3 people that called to speak. Mr. William Ellis, I'm not sure if he's here. What did they say?
Please state your name and address, sir. And we'll allow 3 minutes at the public petition.
All right. My name is William Ellis. My address is 1959 Webbs Lake Road in Microsphere. Chairman Wiggins, Vice Chair Hines, members of the Edgecombe County Board of Commissioners, and Mr. Evans, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight on a request that's very dear to my heart. Growing up in a small community has been one of the many blessings that I've had in my life. That crossroads community that I've grown up in is known as Handy Corner and is located about 2 miles outside of Microsphere. The old Handy Corner store was a gathering place and a vital source of commodities during its heyday in this farming community. It had a milling operation that mixed feed for animals and ground meal. Had an eating establishment with the best barbecue and burger stew around, and also served as a general store. I have so many fond memories of going to that store with my granddaddy and buying an 8-cent drink and some Jack cookies, or sometimes a moon pie. The kids would play as the farmers sat on the benches or a drink crate to discuss their crops or their hunting activities. I remember gathering also at the store on Sundays after church with all the other children and parents that had ponies and carts as we would ride around the community. If you look at that first page, that guy with that cowboy hat might be familiar to you. There are so many more memories, too numerous to mention, but I found out from letters that people wrote that I presented to Chairman Wiggins of some things. For instance, during Hurricane Hazel, people within the community came to the Handy Corner store to ride out the storm. They felt safer in that store. But it's not only about the store. It's also about a community and a time when neighbors would step up to help each other, helping to bring in a crop, visiting the sick, lending the neighbor whatever he needed to get by, from livestock, equipment, food, credit, or money. This community pulled together as one, so no one went without. That same spirit is still alive today in our Handy Corner community. My great-granddaddy, Thad Ellis, lent the money to his cousin for the first store to be built in 1933. Out of my great-granddaddy's 11 children, 5 descendants of those families still live in the Handy Corner community, including myself. As you can see, this endeavor is very important to me. Therefore, I respectfully ask and request that a sign be erected that designates the intersection of Webb's Lake Road and Webb's Chapel Road as Handy Corner. I appreciate your time tonight and appreciate your consideration with this. Thank you.
I don't think that we would have any objections here. It's within our power to do. Mr. Evans,
So what we'll do is no objection from the board. We'll present a request to the Department of Transportation, and they do signs like this for intersections and such as this, so we can certainly make that.
there are no objections from this board, and we're asking Mr. Evans to proceed to see if that can happen and keep us close to this. To that, it might be a process, we don't know.
Right.
But there are no objections from the board. And I was supposed to put the board to do that. And we move forward and also stay in touch with Ellis. Okay? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for this request. What is the game?
Sir?
I'm interested in, might not tell you now, the game of cats. I see that. Might not have time to tell you now, but next one, Sarah.
Also, we had to call sign up Ms. Candace Owens.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And thank you for having me tonight. I have, this is not a happy time for me, and I don't want to be here. But I am here as a result of the paper articles that Rocky Mount Telegram and Herrera Times wrote that distressed me to no end. My spirit was crushed. I cannot believe that Edgecombe County is in the shape that Ms. Atkinson from the State Treasurer's Office presented last month. And I'm speaking to those two articles. I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed of our county. We have no business being where we are. We have no business being 2 years late on our last audit. I don't know how it happened. I don't know why we have 2 audit firms working on this, paying one $75,000. And I don't know what we're paying the other. Why do we have 2 audit firms? I don't know where the money's coming from. I don't know where it was found. We have to get this done by February the 22nd, or we risk losing $3.7 million. And I know there's already been an extension to June on that. That's fine. We shouldn't have an extension. We shouldn't be in this situation. We can rely on the School of Government and the LGC for classes on how to keep us out of this situation. I would be very interested to know how many of you have taken the required classes, physical training offered by required by the LGC. I would really like to know for 6 years, back to 2015. And I'd like that written down, and I'd like a report on that.
I can't promise you to give you a report
I'm sorry?
on what we have done. The board individually, that's an individual thing.
That's an individual thing, but it should be reported somewhere. It should be in the records.
But I'm not going to promise you one.
Mr. Evans stated that we had the root of the problem as being 3 things: change of personnel, change in audit firms, and change in reporting procedures. Well, this has been going on since 2015. It makes no sense to me. It doesn't even make sense. Now, Ms. Edmondson reported in the paper from the State Treasurer's Office, and I quote, Edgecombe County's inability to meet its finance and reporting obligations could result in the LGC taking control of the county government, as it did with Principal several years ago. I hope that's an overreaction. But you know, when I first read that, I was crushed. I was so embarrassed and so ashamed. But, you know, after thinking about that, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to come in and let them take us over and get us straight again. I don't know what it will take. Do you all get a financial accountant every month? You do. So you didn't know that you were in this shed?
I think we do that. We do that. We were out on orders.
We've got a decreasing population. If we've got a decrease in population, then we need a payroll that needs to be decreased. We need something to be decreased. We've got one social services, you're not going to like this at all. We've got one social services and 2 locations. We've got one Edgecombe Community College and 2 locations. We've got one court system and 2 locations. We've got to find a place to cut money. We can't, with the second highest tax people in county in the state of North Carolina. And we've got to find a place to cut money. We've got a county manager, a deputy county manager, an assistant county manager, and a decreasing population. We've got a website that I can't operate. I went on the website and I couldn't find contact for 3 of you. I couldn't find a phone number for 1 of you, and I couldn't find anything for 2 of you. And I called everybody I could call. And I talked to Mr. Evans, I talked to Ms. Harris, I talked to Mr. Boswell. Mr. Boswell came to my home, which I appreciate, thank you. And I talked to Mr. Wooten. I called Ms. Wilson, the phone rang and rang and rang and rang, and I called several times, and there was no answering machine. So I never talked to her. I called Mr. Wiggins and talked to his wife and left a message, never heard anything. You know, it seems to me that we can take some of these county managers, deputies, and assistants and double up or do whatever has to be done, because we've got to do something. I quote again from the newspapers, 2018 and 2019, and this came from Ms. Edmondson again. She said, material weaknesses reported in those 2 years. There were key accounts not reconciled. There were several requirements of the NC general statutes that were violated. Several funds reported deficits. Extensive budgetary over-expenditures. That's not right, folks. It's not right. Paying 2 auditing firms, and let me go back. And the commissioners asked for a raise about 6 months ago, according to the newspaper. I don't think that happened. Did it happen?
The commissioner got a raise.
Sorry?
The commissioner did get a raise.
They did get a raise. How much?
Percentage, some percentage, you know.
Does anybody know what percentage? How can that be? I'm not sure that you're keeping up with what you need to keep up with.
Commissioner, I think your time is running down.
Okay, well, I'll come back next week.
I'd like to respond to you, okay?
Well,
Everything that you have stated is a responsibility of the board, the finances of the county, responsibility of the board. And I believe that we are.
I can't hear you.
Everything that you have stated is the financial responsibility of the board.
Yes, it is.
And I think we have gotten a message from LGC in terms of what we need to do. And it will be done. How we do it is a matter of the board, how the board, this board decides to do it. Okay? I don't know But in terms of the consultant firms and additional resources that we put to this, to correct this action, it will be done. Now, what you're reading to us, I don't know if it's actually factual, because you're reading from a newspaper statement. You're not necessarily reading from the documents of LGC. So I'm not going to say that what you have said is actually the way it has happened. I do know that we have problems, okay? And I'm not saying it is the way that you are stating, okay? Because sometimes I read, and it's not exactly the way he was stated.
I understand that.
Okay. So I just wanted to make that clear also, okay?
I understand that.
Okay. So if you've got additional comments, please, go ahead.
Sheriff Atkinson has asked for pay raises for the sheriff's department, and he needs to get pay raises. He's asked-
You want to cut the budget, but you want to give him more money.
That's not my problem, that's your problem.
Well, we don't have a problem, you got it. Okay. We
I've got a problem. I surely
You
do
got
have the
something
problem.
we don't have, okay? Go
I
ahead.
surely do have the problem.
Right.
He wants an animal shelter, and we need an animal shelter. And when I thought things were at the worst, I thought it couldn't get any worse. It did. QVC burned. And you know, I don't think there were any of you out there except Mr. Evans and Mr. Wooten. There were a bunch of people from the Rocky Mountain government and probably Nash County. There were a lot of Rocky Mountain people out there. It's yours.
I was there, so
You were there.
I went there.
So, yeah.
I went there.
You went there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for being there.
I would think.
You went there.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm glad you did. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I was not there and will not go there. Don't intend to get in the way of anybody fighting fire at a major manufacturer. I went by after. There's nothing I can contribute to the situation. I'm not using it as an excuse. I would not have gone no matter what. I don't get in the way of people that know what they're doing.
And I think you're exactly right. We had a very competent staff there, and that's what we put there in terms of the responses to that. And normally they kept us informed. Some of us just saw a need to be present, but once our presence was shown, we got out of their way. Okay.
I was out of town.
And I was not there because I was at home calling family and friends who work there to make sure that was safe.
Explain. Nobody has to explain.
Well, I was just, since you put it in the press, we just wanted to respond to it, okay?
All right.
So that you get your time with the press. We wanted to correct some of your statements, okay?
All right, that's fine. I want the entire county's leadership to grab hold and show. I feel like we're showing a lack of accountability, and for us to be in the situation that we're in, it's crushing the spirit of our citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
I didn't want to say one
Go
thing.
ahead.
I did want to make sure, because I know exactly what Ms. Evans said, I did want to make it clear. Now, what was written into the newspaper comparing Edgecombe County to the town of Princeville was the newspaper's writing, not what she said. So I don't want anything attributed to her that she did not say.
She did not
Hold on,
say.
hold on. You all, it's not, you finish your time. She's not responding, she responded to you. You have finished your time. Okay. It's not an adversarial role, it's just a corrective action.
All right.
Any other comments or questions?
We also, I'm sorry.
Okay, so whatever.
Also, Mr. Camillus Dance has signed up to speak tonight.
Anyway, Lord Hampton, 127 Midway Lane, Caldwell, North Carolina. My mailing address is P.O. Box 1391, Pine Top, North Carolina. You're 3 miles out of Pine Top, 7 miles out of Caldwell. I'm gonna start my comments for 3 minutes. That was a long 3 minutes.
We're allowed.
Okay, thank you. First thing I want to speak to is, I'm gonna go there because if I have this.
Mr. Dance.
Yeah.
It's kind of brief, man.
Okay.
We might understand.
Okay, all right. First of all, I'm gonna go there. I looked
I'm a daughter wife. I didn't see it. I've been out here since the late 80s. Matter of fact, I've been at these meetings and my meetings longer than some of you have been on the commission. Matter of fact, the only one at the Rocky Mount City Council that has been going to the meeting longer than I have is the attorney. And I've seen all of y'all come up here. Okay, the second thing, I go by QVC every morning going to work. However, I was not going to work 3 o'clock that morning. It was during the holiday season and coming up on the holiday season, we were working over. And I didn't go, I waited to go at 4, but I got a phone call, one from Charlotte, telling me QVC was on fire. And I sent a message back saying on fire, they thought I was crazy. Didn't know what fire was. So then I scrolled down Facebook and I seen my cousin had posted the fire. And then when I went through there, I guess it had made everybody leave, so I videoed when I went through on the way to work at about 3:20. So I am concerned about QVC, and I've been following, been to the press conferences. I know who were there, so I don't have to go there. I know that press conference. But my main concern is I've seen the fundraisers, the donations being asked, but my main concern is where is the drive to make sure QVC come back? That's the piece I'm missing. I want to see the campaign. I want to hear about the campaign publicly, especially with Edgecombe County Commissioners. What are you doing to make sure they come back? Because I have not heard that part. Well, and I see that February 1st, that they will be terminating everybody employment. And I feel like they're going to come back, and I won't go into that part. But like I said, I want to see a public campaign.
Well, there is a conversation.
Thank you.
Ongoing.
Okay.
Our partnership and our staff to assist QVC in that way that we can help them come back. We are having that conversation.
Thank you.
But it's an economic development conversation. A lot of things you don't necessarily see in public.
I understand.
It just happened.
But it would sound good if it just was saying that we're working on it.
And
Make sure they come back. People need to hear that. I need to hear that.
well,
Because,
make sure that we try to help them come back. It's their decisions
I understand.
to make whether they come back or not.
I understand.
We want them back as bad as anybody.
Okay, I understand.
We've got probably 2,000 families involved out there.
Oh, I understand.
And we certainly, they've been a good corporate partner for this community. And we will do anything within the power of the board. And I think the other partner agencies are of that same mindset. So, we will be doing that with steps.
It's recorded. I'm recording it live and y'all recording it, so it's documented now. I like documentation. And the last piece I've seen, are y'all zooming tonight? Okay, I was in Greenville when I got the email, and when I got home, I saw where when I went to look up the agenda, I saw you were zooming, and I was excited. Started not to come, but I'm ready to start back coming to the meeting, all which was Zoom. Because a lot of people don't know it, and a lot of people follow me, so they know about it, like some that you all do, and so that's great. I've been asking for that, because the phone calls, you couldn't hardly understand what you all are saying. So I appreciate it, and I have confidence that you all are going to get the money thing right, and we're going to stand by it. I'm going to stand by it, I don't know about nobody else. And then the last thing, Lord have mercy. Chair, Vice Chair. Lord have mercy, y'all could have nominated a woman. Thank you. You could have nominated a woman as a Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
That's all that I had to call in advance to sign up. I don't know if there's anyone else who would.
Anybody here? Anybody else will get public petition? Here now, we're moving on to other business. Consideration of budget amendments that may be brought out of next service.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. A couple I do want to point out. You'll look at budget amendment number 3. As you know, this is, we brought in-house emergency medical service, EMS services, starting January 1 of 2020. So it's been almost a year now since we put that in-house. And so you'll see a budget amendment there. Right now, we're running okay in salaries. In fact, you'll see that this budget amendment includes moving some funds out of salaries into primarily contractual as you know, we pay a percentage, 5% collection fee to our billing company. So as the billing goes up, then that fee goes up along with it. So that's part of the reason for the budget amendment. Also, medical supplies, you see we're adding $150,000 there. Medical supplies have increased dramatically over the last several months. I did want to point that out. I know that, EMS in-house is fairly new to us. I just wanted to draw attention to that. Also, budget amendment number 6. I want to point out that in Department of Social Services, we are receiving $160,371 for the low-income household water assistance program. And that's a program similar to the HOPE program that's been out there for a little while to help people with paying their rent, getting caught up on rent. This is in particular for utility bills or water and sewer bills. And so we're glad to have that available for our citizens. A number of vendors, including our own water and sewer offices, signed up to be able to receive those funds for our clients. You do have at your table 2 additional budget amendments I would like for you to consider, if you will. The first one, which is budget amendment number 19. As you know, we've been expecting to receive just under $10 million from the American Rescue Act program. And so we have just recently received our first half of that. They were out distributing half of the funds to counties and municipalities. We received half of those funds, so we need to budget that revenue. We have discussed possible uses of these funds with the Budget Committee over a couple of meetings. I presented a draft budget to them at a previous meeting. They asked me to go back and make some adjustments. So you'll also see at your table, there's a table format or a spreadsheet that has green and a couple of other colors on it. And so, based on a review of the Budget Committee, you'll see that there are basically 5 categories of eligibility uses of ARP funds: public health, addressing negative economic impact, lost revenue to the county, premium pay, infrastructure, and then also using part of the funds for administrative grant is available as well. So you'll see for the first half of the funds that we're proposing, that we're putting 1.3 under public health under those various uses. The Budget Committee suggested that we set aside half of that, or $2.5 million, under the lost revenue category. I want to point out that the ARP rules state that a county or town, if we can show that we had a loss of revenue during the course of the pandemic, there's a calculation to be done. Well, the trouble is that most counties and towns did not lose revenue because sales tax was strong, collections were strong, and what have you. There is a bill that the U.S. Senate has already passed. It's now in the U.S. House of Representatives that will give counties and towns flexibility under that category of lost revenue. In other words, it will allow counties and towns to assume a loss of revenue. And then if you're able to assume a loss of revenue, you can put those funds, draw them down as lost revenues, and then you can use them for any activity that is otherwise eligible. That bill has not yet become law. And so the Budget Committee asked that we basically set this money aside to see where that goes. And that falls under the lost revenue. Also put $1 million there under the infrastructure category for broadband. As you know, we've been working with the company for some time to try to deploy or expand broadband availability. So this is a budget that at least allows us to record the revenue that we've received, to set up these expenditure lines. As we continue to work with the Budget Committee to put even more details to this, you'll likely see more budget amendments to come back before you. So that is regarding budget amendment number 19. Budget amendment number 20. We had in previous years, and we realized we had not done it this year, we had in previous years set up a budget of $25,000 where we already had it set up so that if we had to respond to some emergency, for us normally it's usually a hurricane or a flood, that we already had the budget set up so that we can operate under, a response to that particular emergency. We did not budget that this year, and we're grateful we didn't have a hurricane to respond to, but we did have to respond to the situation at QVC. And so, though a lot of the response was done by a volunteer organization that there are no costs for, there are some costs that will come to the county, including fuel and some other things. We have had conversations with representatives at the state office, in particular the Secretary of the Department of Public Safety, who was on site, who said that there will be some state funds to assist us. But in order for us to receive and to address these immediate costs, we do need to set this budget up. So you'll see I'm recommending that we set up this budget line for disaster relief. So I'm happy to answer any questions about those two in particular or any of the other budget amendments.
We'll get a motion, any questions about any of the amendments? Motion? So moved. Second? Question? All in favor, let it be known by the vote, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, they're all approved. Next.
Next item on the agenda is regarding the health department, the fee schedule. Staff at our health department regularly reviews the fee schedule to add fees as needed and to ensure its existing fees cover the costs associated with providing the services. For your consideration is the addition of the COVID vaccine fees per the attached billing codes, as well as the addition of an engineered option permit fee and a pump calculation fee for environmental health. The Human Services Board at their last meeting voted to recommend the approval of these changes to the Health Department's fee schedule, and I recommend as well.
Motion? Question? All in favor, let it be known by the vote, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, it is approved. Next.
The next item on the agenda is regarding the location of our proposed animal shelter. As you know, we are considering plans for the construction of a new animal shelter. A new shelter will allow us to replace our current shelter, which is aged and undersized. A new shelter will also provide the opportunity to consolidate animal service operations with the town of Tarboro, which they have expressed interest. Sheriff Atkinson and I both recommend that animal services operations be moved from the current location on North Main Street here in Tarboro to property the county owns on Anaconda Road next to the Sheriff's Office Detention Center. This will not only allow for the county to make use of land already owned, but will also enable Sheriff Atkinson to have more direct access over those operations. In order for our planning to move forward, I ask the board to consider giving your consensus approval of this location for the new animal shelter. I've included in your packet a map. Certainly you'll see there the red, don't take that as method drawings or anything, but just to give you some idea of proposed location right next to the Sheriff's Office on Anaconda Road. So really, in order for our work to move forward with selecting an architect to further explore the use of that site for this, depending on the size of the shelter that we need and what have you, we really need to narrow it down to this site, and I'd like to at least have your consensus for us to use this site.
Is there a motion to approve the proposed site for the manager? Second question. All in favor?
And that was what I was gonna ask.
Go ahead.
Because I was saying that we had not voted on a location, and as I told everybody, it had not been brought to us yet, so I appreciate you finally bringing it to us, so we can answer that question. But I was just wondering, had anybody even talked about the size we're looking for, the cost, and if we're gonna merge with Tarboro, is Tarboro gonna be all in to help build this shelter?
So yes, we've been having those conversations. We really need to have an architect at the table with us to have a conversation with staff, Sheriff's Office and Animal Services. Sheriff Axe and I have met with Town Manager Troy Lewis to discuss it. They are interested. So we really need to see exactly what size we need because we're consolidating two operations, but also need to give ourselves room for growth so that we don't have to come back 5 years from now and build another animal shelter. We also need to look at and see how it can be configured. Staff may have seen how some animal shelters might have a run that's a certain size, but in an emergency situation, you can basically split it up and create 2 runs out of it. So we need to make sure that there's capacity in an emergency situation where people have to bring in their animals for a short period of time. So those are things we've already been talking about, but do not have answers yet.
I heard you mention about downsizing if it comes to that. Bottom line is, if there is going to be a shelter built, what is it going to do for this piece of property, or is there a need to consider other property because we don't need to be building another one in 5 years?
That's correct, and that's part of the due diligence that we will put into this site in particular. Because you'll see the county, I can't see it here on my printout, the county owns several acres here, but not all of it is built. That closest to the road, closest to Anaconda Road is buildable. There's a drainage ditch that runs along there, so that that will be some wet area that we can't use. So that's part of what we'll need to look at for this site.
The other question is how much of the input or what percentage of the input is Tara willing to put into this?
That they have not made that decision.
I think it's not to say that this is the final action we're going to take on this. It's just beginning to determine whether that we would build that. It might take what you're suggesting another site. If it's not buildable, it's not going to be large enough. But it is beginning. Is it the beginning of the process? Well, it's to have a large animal shelter. Okay.
One more thing. Now, I have heard from another county, they had a representative in the General Assembly who somehow or another got this to be one of his favorite things to do and help build one. So we need to make sure that we look everywhere, every pot of money that could be found, grants for anything like this so that we can do the same thing.
Sure, absolutely. And as you know, Sheriff Atkinson kicked off a fundraising campaign, I guess it's been about a year ago. And I think today they've raised almost $50,000. I think he said to this board in your open meeting before that he has a donor who's expressed interest in donating a significant amount of funds, but he did not want to do that until we had identified a site and we were definite that we're going to be, have a site identified and definite to be built on the site. So that, as well as I think other opportunities, I think that there could be grant funds available for regional disaster response possibly, because in a disaster, that's one of the things that we have to manage and maintain is pets that are brought in. So.
I think what we're doing, we're looking that somewhere down the line we're going to build an animal shelter. That's what we're doing tonight.
Yes, sir.
We have additional comments, but all in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye. All opposed, hearing none. It is approved. Next, Mr. Evans.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. And as you're probably aware that last year on June 17th, it became a Juneteenth became a federally recognized holiday and a paid holiday for federal employees. The state of North Carolina has taken action to acknowledge and recognize Juneteenth as a holiday, though the state has not adopted it necessarily as a paid holiday. The General Assembly's position has been to leave that up to counties and towns. A number of counties and towns have already approved Juneteenth as a paid holiday for their employees. I'm sure I probably don't have a complete list, but just in a quick search, I found that Wade, Orange, Buncombe, Hertford, and Durham counties, and probably some others, as well as several municipalities, have already taken action to make Juneteenth a federal holiday. And certainly you'll see there in the resolution I'm presenting for your consideration tonight, gives a little bit of background on it. Be happy to read through it if you like, but I do recommend that the board considers adding Juneteenth as a county holiday.
Ms. Powell, for the second, yes, sir. Ms. Powell, are you please read that? Are you on the page? Resolution number.
Okay, Edgecombe County Board of Commissioners, resolution to adopt Juneteenth as a county holiday. Whereas the Board of Commissioners maintain the right to modify its ordinance to effect a more desirable result for eligible employees. And whereas the month of June is the time that many of our nation recognize Juneteenth as a holiday that celebrates Emancipation Day, the day in history when the last state ratified the Emancipation Proclamation. And whereas the date marks the time period where African Americans of Texas received a notice from President Lincoln that slavery has been abolished, a declaration that was codified in the 13th Amendment of the Constitution. And whereas on June 17, 2021, the Juneteenth National Independence Act became law, which makes June 19th a federal holiday. And whereas we desire to recognize this symbol event in our history and its importance for all employees. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Edgecombe County Board of Commissioners hereby recognizes Juneteenth as Juneteenth, which shall be a paid holiday for Edgecombe County government employees to be observed on Friday when it falls on Saturday or Sunday. This is the third day of January 2020, signed by Colonel Wiggins, Chairman, attached by Frangie Mungo, Clerk to the board.
We got a motion, second.
I did the motion, I didn't hear a second.
I didn't hear a second.
Second.
I made a motion, about a second.
Somebody said,
Second.
thank you.
Any questions? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, it is approved. Moving on.
The next item on the agenda is regarding our farm leases. On behalf of the county, Sandy Heath, our property extension director, facilitated the bid of a number of county-owned parcels for farm leases. They were bid in two groups. Group number one at Kingsborough Industrial Park included a total of 196.5 acres, and group two at the landfill included a total of 46.29 acres. Based on the bids received, we recommend the approval of farm leases to Group 1, J.L. Whitehurst Farms at $185 per acre, and Group 2 to J.L. Whitehurst Farms as well, for a price also of $185 per acre. I recommend that you approve the lease of these parcels and authorize me to execute agreements for the same. And you'll see in your agenda packet the bids that were received.
Motion. Second. Motion and a second. Question? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, it is approved.
I do want to thank Ms. Heath for helping us with handling that process for your help. Item F is regarding franchise agreements for non-emergency medical transport. We received application for franchise agreements to operate ambulances in Edgecombe County from Medical Transport Incorporated and Vital East Care. This is to provide non-emergency medical transportation as a backup for Edgecombe County Rescue Squad. I recommend that the board approves the franchise agreement for Medical Transport Incorporated and Vital East Care as presented.
Motion. Question?
Are these the only two we received?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that's okay, okay.
Any other questions? At this time, we have performance and human service board. We have recommended, Mr. Taylor, Dr. Jonathan Taylor, recommended for reappointment. The recommendation is to appoint both. Do we have a motion? Move. Second. Moving and second. Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, they are reappointed. After this, that releases anything for our attention.
No, sir, Mr. Chairman. Happy to answer any questions.
Motion to approve. Question?
your packet the State of the Community Health Report that's done by our health department. And you have a presentation there. This presentation was given to our Human Services Board at their last meeting. We do have Mr. Thomas Stepner here, who is our Health Services Coordinator, if you have any questions about it.
Do you have a question? And now we move on to the financial report and what contains this program.
I do want to mention regarding the QVC update. I'm sure you've heard, that's been, they released it to the press. QVC has announced that they will be providing what they're calling shutdown pay for their employees through February 1st. Starting then, they will provide separation pay that will be at least 4 weeks for their employees. We have been working with our partners at, particularly at Turning Point Workforce Development, as well as Community College, Carrollton Gateway Partnership, and other partners, have already had several conversations with representatives from QVC on making sure that the employees have access to the services within that network. Of course, first being unemployment benefits, but they won't be eligible to apply until after February the 1st. But also, job placement services are available as well. So the regional team, all the way up to the state, have met with folks from QVC. They're already generating a list. There are a number of employees that have expressed interest in these, or employers who've expressed interest in these employees. So they have a long list of employees that have given them information. They're going to be doing a career fair, working with community college and other partners sometime later in the month, and likely do a second one probably in February sometime. So there's a lot of work that's being coordinated and going on as we speak to connect those employees with services to help them, number one, to connect, sign up for unemployment benefits when they become eligible, and secondly, to get them connected with reemployment services. They are, the folks at QVC are very appreciative to be able to use the Ag Center, one thing. And Ms. Heath, and for her on our behalf, I thank the Arena Board for allowing them to take an occupancy in that building for at least a couple of months probably. It has been, they've expressed, it's been perfect for them, a convenient space right down the road from their facility, but easy for them to get their team members in and out. In fact, they're going to be leasing the space from the Arena Board for a couple of months probably. The on-site investigation wrapped up early last week. That's just the on-site work. The investigation itself will continue to go on for some time. ATF, SBI, and other officials on site coordinated with Mark and his team. They're on site, so they turned it over to us, I believe it was maybe last Tuesday, and then we then turned the site back over to QVC. So certainly, again, proud of all the work that everybody has done on that. But I just want to give you a quick update on QVC. Any questions about QVC in particular?
So when will an official investigative report be given?
We don't know. You know, they told us that it could be still several weeks out now.
I was just wondering that since it's turned back over to QVC, do they continue to investigate while it's in the hands of QVC?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, they spent time to gather the information that they needed on scene, going through the building, being able to, you know, see on site what's going on now. They take that information, working with the sheriff's office on you know, any information that they have, and they'll continue to work on that. Facility of that size and fire that complicated, it's not unusual that you know, it will take some time for them to wrap up that investigation.
Any other questions? Anything else with that?
Quickly, just wanted to mention that we did give a more detailed update to the Budget Committee earlier this evening regarding our update on financial management improvements. Quickly, I'll just mention a lot of work has taken place over the last a couple of weeks and wrapping up the FY20 audit. Fixed asset schedule was completed. A draft of financials was sent over to the auditor. We did, as we've already talked about briefly earlier, we did get the deadline extended by USDA through the end of June. The auditors expect to make good progress on this effort, wrapping up the FY20 audit and then moving into the FY21 audit. And we've created a detailed action plan for monitoring this progress moving forward. We have brought in a consultant to help us with that. Her name is Ms. Jonna Sharp, and she has been extremely helpful to us. She's had opportunity to meet and speak with the Budget Committee today twice. I want to acknowledge Catherine Walters, our Finance Director, and her team have been working tremendously. They've put in a lot of time, especially Catherine, over the last couple of weeks to get this where this needs to be. And we'll keep you updated. Certainly have to answer any questions.
Is there a deadline for correcting the problem?
So as you all know, we have till the end of February to get both the FY20 and 21 audits done. Then the plan is then to submit those to the LGC in March to review any questions they might have, then to go before the LGC in April or May. And then once we go before the LGC to get their approval, we will go to closing on that USDA loan for District 4 in June.
Is that bringing the issue to a close?
That brings the issue with USDA to a close. Part of the work that we're also doing, that this consultant is helping us with, is looking at the processes and the systems so that we can more efficiently get these things done so future audits will be done timely.
Any other questions?
I guess that answers my question, because we don't need to be discussing this in September.
Yes, sir. Absolutely right.
It needs to be finished, done away with, corrected, or whatever we need to do, because this has been going on a long time, as we were told earlier. And when the public, and I know that we don't always depend on what the public say, because sometimes it's a matter of opinion and people don't get the facts. But the bottom line is this issue needs to be resolved.
Yes, sir. And we're on the path to doing that. Absolutely. The final thing, I didn't have it on the agenda, but I want you to have a copy at your table there. You'll recall that a few months ago, our Lead for North Carolina intern, who's here through that program, is working on our initiative we call Community Voice. Community Voice is our effort to improve our communication with our citizens, not just in how we communicate with them, but how they communicate with us, giving our citizens more opportunity to express their opinions to us. Of course, they obviously call us any day or visit us, any of that, but we're trying to create more ways. We showed to you a couple of meetings ago our new citizen feedback form that's on our website. One of the other initiatives under Community Voice is doing a series of community listening forums. And so we have the first one that's scheduled for January 13th. And because COVID cases are still on the increase, we're going to do this first one virtually. We'll have to see how the future ones go. But the first topic is going to be on pandemic recovery. So Michelle Etheridge and I will be facilitating a conversation with whoever of our citizens would like to participate, and just wanted you to be aware of that. There will be other forums in this series in the future that we'll let you know about.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Our petition raised the issue that's on our web page. I believe you told me you could access our web page and all our information was there. Was that the truth?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. We redid our website 5 or 6 years ago, and in that contract, it included getting a refresh in 5 years. We did that refresh about a year ago, Jason, I think. So that page with all of you all's information has been there for some time. I think we talked a little, Jason and I talked a little bit earlier, Michael and I did as well. I think what we might see happening is, if anybody had gone to our website prior to that refresh being done about a year ago, and then you go back to the website and you'd already been in it, your computer kind of remembers where you've been unless you clear that information out. You go back in, it's still trying to take you back to that old website. And I know when we first got the refresh done, we even internally saw, oh, it didn't look right. And Jason said, oh no, you have to go in and it's a little process that you have to do. So I think what we're seeing is some people are still seeing that, some maybe. But you can go, and in fact, we showed you our website sometime back when we first redid it. And I feel pretty good about our website, but certainly there are any improvements that we can make, we'll be happy to do that.
I think there was one other snafu, I believe, I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Webb. At the time, Mr. Webb didn't have any information or phone numbers.
Yeah, my phone number was not listed. It pointed out to me, I reached out to Chase and we corrected that, boom, like that.
When I met with Ms. Owens, that was one of the things that she said, and I called Mr. Webb and asked him if he would be willing to put a number up there. Her complaints were people not calling them back, and if several of us had no information, so I asked Mr. Webb that he please.
Well, I'm usually always available by cell phone. My cell phone is a public number, so now I can't say whether they did, but I can always return them because I did return hers. Well, one thing the wife might have forgotten to give it to me, but I did return. I just wanted that to be public information. Is there anything else to commission report? Any further? Thank you, commission. Hearing none, attorney report.
No, sir.
Hearing none. I don't think we're going to discuss economic development.
No, sir. We won't have it.
Okay, good. Is there much to go into closed session to discuss economic development? Second. Question? All in favor, let it be known by the vote, say aye.